appreciate everybody for showing up tonight. Last week was an interesting experience for all of us, and we're happy that potentially we're going to be a little bit more secure in our Zoom presentation tonight. We are privileged to have Kevin Laurent on tonight to give us some education. Kevin's topic is preparing your calves for the market. For those of you that don't know Kevin is a beef specialist located at our research experiment station down in Princeton, Kentucky. Kevin brings 25 plus years of experience in the beef cattle industry and is a valued component of our extension staff. And I can't wait to hear his lecture tonight. Again, thanks to everybody for coming. Hopefully we'll be able to get through this a little bit better than we did last week. I know the presentation will be better. I just hope we can avoid some of the extracurriculars. Kevin, love to hear from you.
All right. Thank you, Les. Appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. If everybody can hear me, give a thumbs up to whoever, but we make sure my audio's good and whatnot. We'll go ahead and get started. One, we've got a lot, certainly trying times right now we're going through, and that's a very much an understatement. But I think with the market being a little sour right now and whatnot, we can easily get down in negative. I know a lot of times we need to just on these kind of times just reflect on what's good, and I'm gonna try to just approach this tonight from that standpoint. And I think we've had a relatively easy winter compared to several winters we've had here recently. So this winter hadn't been too bad. I guess most of our winter came in November. Our spring weather has been good, pretty good, and feed prices are still reasonable. So, we've got a lot to still be thankful for, and I think a lot of positive things out there. So we'll go ahead and get started and move on. Okay, we're going to talk about getting your calves ready for market. We've all heard of this term price discovery, kind of an abstract term, is where buyers and sellers meet, and that interaction and determines some kind of price of an asset or goods or services, whatever it happens to be in the marketplace. If we look at it from a cattle industry standpoint, more specifically, I think you can see these, price discovery or the price we get for our cattle or that cattle sell for can be described with a lot of different extenuating circumstances. Overall supply and demand, obviously that rule follows everything. How good are the cattle that are being offered at that particular moment? Who's there? Who's at the stockyard? Do they have orders for the kind of cattle we're selling that day? Is there a pot load or a semi load of what they need? What's the CME board, the Chicago Mercantile Futures Market doing that day? That can cast a positive or negative, effect on the market. And then right now, I think it's a prime, timely example. We can see the, grass is greening up now, and we're in the midst of the grass fever, and lots of folks are trying to find good stocker calves to put out on grass. So that can obviously affect things, and we'll get into a lot of these details here later. I kind of put this pyramid of value, if you will, kind of coined this thing and devised this thing several years ago for these type of presentations, and kind of to see, what's our value, what's the flow of value, what can we do with our calves to make them more attractive to buyers. And I kind of put red as the bad, as the bad color. Yellow is kind of where a lot of us, our average producers fall. And then maybe green, as the sign of money or dollars, as we get kind of up the pyramid, so to speak. And you can kind of look at what I've got in here, and we can move some of this around, but, cattle that are singles that have problems, the bulls, they have horns, rough hair, bad eyes, those kind of cattle that have problems, usually they're going to sell for a discount. Our average calves, a lot of us fall right there in the yellow, in our cow-calf herds. And what I'm hoping tonight is to maybe move us from yellow into green. We may not be able to have a one-owner load lot of known genetics at the very top of this thing, but we can get to 10 or more head offered of the same kind at one time and have an attractive package in front of our buyers and gain some premium or a little above the market, so to speak. So we're going to just kind of work through this and kind of come over some ways we can kind of maybe get to the top of that pyramid. So I think to do that, we need to know about our market. We need to know what drives the market. And really, the cattle industry is driven by semi-load lots. I mean, we're primarily a cow-calf stocker background or state. Our cattle are generally going to leave here to go get finished in a feedlot. So they're going to be leaving on a semi 48, 50,000 pound load lots, right? And so if a particular order buyer, you know, goes to a stockyard in Kentucky and a one owner load lot, that's, you know, is what he needs, you know, is the kind of cattle that he needs, the package he needs or she needs, you know, that one's going to get a lot of attention, you know. So one owner load lots are you know, are a premium. Now, if it's a one owner lot in general, I mean, that's good because they haven't been commingled, and we're going to get into some of that here in a minute, but it depends on how many calves are in that lot. Do we have enough to make to get a good start toward that 48, 50,000 pound semi-load, right? If there's only 2 or 3 of like kind, it might be a one owner lot, but it's not much of a package. So, and that's where a lot of us fall, you know, being in Kentucky with small herds, you know, 30, 40 cows, you split that in half, bulls and steers and heifers. And now you know, you break that down by weight. So it's pretty easy to break down to where you're selling 2s, 3s and 4s kind of packages. And that's not usually give us a lot of leverage. Here's a slide that Kenny Burdine, Dr. Burdine there at UK, this was part of, I think, part of his PhD dissertation. Honestly, this was part of it. It was the effective lot size on the preconditioned price. And you can see that you get the most bang for your buck, so to speak, or the most premium when you get in that 10 or more head lot size. That's where you get the biggest increase. Now that thing levels off at, and this was 6 weight calves in CPH sales, I think at the Lexington market is what he compiled this. And if you look at levels off around that load lot of 6 weights at 80 head, you know, 75, 80 head, and then the extra premium kind of levels off. So it's kind of makes sense, and it's we use it a lot to show folks. And what the opposite of this though is what I really need folks need to realize. So that most benefit, and you know, greater than 10 or 15 head, you know, but what about if you're the only one, and this happens a lot in Western Kentucky, what if you're the only one that brings, you know, 8 or 10 or 6 or 7 8-weight heifers or 8-weight steers to one of our sales in Western Kentucky that really doesn't trade a lot of yearlings week in, week out, and you're the only one there. So right there, you could have a huge price discount, could be very severe for small lots of heavy calves. So this lot size thing can be a big player, and it'll trump quality a lot of times just because that buyer has nothing else to put with those calves to get that semi-load to be able to market. So let's learn a little bit about the market. How do I know what my calves are worth? If we're new to this deal, if we're, you know, we've kind of been out of touch with the market for a while, how am I going to find that information? What do these terms mean? What is LM1 and 2? What's that mean? You know, what are some of these terms? So what I want to do in this next section here, I want to talk about some feeder calf grades. We'll talk about avoiding common discounts that we have in our calves. And then I want to get into something that I've added for here is reading a market report, something that I haven't really built slides for until this talk, to kind of dig into our market reports and try to explain what some of this means. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with that. So our feeder calf grades, I know some of y'all who took Master Marketer or Master Stocker, this part.
Kevin, we lost you.
All right, Kevin, you're gone.
I'll give him a call.
Okay, how about now?
Gotcha.
Okay.
Go.
Oh, must have something. Okay. Uh, I'm gonna pick up here. Is that okay? We're talking about feeder calf grades. I don't know where
Go
y'all.
for it.
Okay. So what our feeder calf grades? That's the kind of the textbook category or guidelines that our market reporters use to try to establish uniform grades to report prices. Okay, and it's a combination of frame score and muscle score. And what they're trying to do is estimate finished weight with frame score and then give some kind of muscle score to see as overall quality and cutability of the calf. Uh, so it's just kind of illustrates it here. We're talking about frame size and how that's going to affect that calf from its growth curve. Obviously, larger frame cattle, later maturing cattle are going to finish at a higher weight, and smaller frame cattle finish at a much lower weight. So that's what it's trying to do, is categorize these calves as such. Industry is more in this larger, medium to large frame, and definitely not as attractive as these smaller frame cattle. And you think about it from a logical standpoint, on a packer's floor, that shackle can hang, doesn't take much room to hang a bigger carcass. That carcass is hanging vertically. So throughput and pounds through that packing house on a daily basis is just more pounds they can process. So the large and medium frame, you may see some small frames on market reports, and then you'll have a number that follows that, a 1, 2, or a 3. You never hardly ever see a 4, but mostly you'll see packages of 1s and 2s or 2s and 3s, and that's where the big category and the big price breaks usually happen, is at those 2 categories there. This kind of what we're looking at is muscling, overall muscling. And if you look at it, it's just that overall squareness from the ground up. And you can see there's a good example of a number 1, and then a number 2, number 3, and then a 4. I think old Beeler likes to say that's a starved jersey. We never see a 4 reported. Most of our Holsteins will come in as 3s, large 3s, if you see the market reports on Holsteins. And then again, your 2s and 3s will get categorized. They're more slanted toward the 3s, and they'll get a pretty good discount. And then 1s and 2s is where we want to be when we bring our cattle to town. All right. And these are, nothing set in stone, but some overall discounts that we can get between the grades. Again, I think I was looking at some of Kenny Burdine's data, and I think this is averaged, the 2s and 3s grade has averaged about a $23 hundredweight discount over the last 6 or 7 years that he had compiled. So pretty good hit to be in this category. All right. Now, there is overall quality, and we're going to talk about some of these issues and show some pictures here, something we can kind of really look at and see. Obviously, if you look at these calves, there's one pretty good calf in the picture of the 4, and then you've got problems with the others. This dairy cross, this red dairy cross looking thing, is obviously one of these, a very low number 3. This calf here looks like kind of a rough hair, maybe a chronic, another number 3 kind of calf. You got a little small frame steer calf here. That's on the small frame side. So these 3 definitely have problems. And here's, a number 1, large and medium frame kind of number 1 there. So that's pretty obvious. Other things that can come into play on discounts is breed type. A heavy-eared calf, not much muscle to boot, and also with the heavy ear look. So you've got breed issues. Not necessarily breed issues here, and as much with the Galloway and the belted Galloway as it is with color. There won't be probably hardly any other belted Galloways in the barn that day. So again, it's just not having enough of like kind to get a load. Fleshing condition, that can kind of rear its ugly head this time of the year. A lot of times we've got grass fever, and something that happens, it commonly can happen with folks that have fall-born calves, is they can love on them a little too much in February, March with that creep feeder, and they turn a calf that looks like this, into something that looks a little more like this, a little bit too much flesh. You can see the fat here over the tail head. One that, and then if you're buying these calves to turn out on grass, I mean, obviously this black calf here would probably be a better candidate from a condition standpoint. These real spongy kind of soft calves usually don't take off on grass very well at this time of the year. So you can get into some issues there. So that can be a problem. Hair coat can kind of can come into play. Your hair coat needs to match the season of the year. If it's April, right now in Kentucky, and you've got calves, this is a pretty good calf. It's a large frame kind of, number 2 kind of calf. Would fit in with 1s and 2s in a group. Nothing wrong with that calf. Looks like got a lot of growth, right kind of flesh. This time of the year, that's probably okay hair coat. You put this calf in September, and you're trying to sell this calf in September coming off a fescue, and what do you have? That's a fescue calf. That's one that was a poor doer or a chronic, and nobody's going to want to touch that one. So hair coat can come into play. The other thing is steers and bulls. And it's interesting to watch our sale barn reports across the state. You see different amounts of bulls being sold and offered from yard to yard. And in general, I see more bulls being reported central and western Kentucky than I see from, say, east central on, or the bluegrass area. Kenny has kept track of this, keeps track of prices and whatnot. And on 5-weight cattle, that average discount has been a negative $11.20 from 2010 to 2019. And it's been very consistent. You can look at that line, those 2 lines on the graph. That's a very consistent discount. And that's something that can definitely be avoided. And we'll have a strategy for that here in a few minutes. Lot size, again, that's the slide again, showing the effect of lot size. If we're a small producer, lot size can be a challenge, especially if we're calving year round. One of the best ways, if we're a small, medium-sized producer, to try to affect or keep from taking a lot size discount, having the right kind of, having a bigger lot size to offer, is to have a calving season, have a tight calving season. We'll have more calves have a chance to be at the same size and be able to be offered in the ring at the same time. Another thing is to raise mainstream cattle, cattle that look like most of the cattle that are going to be there. If you want to raise a breed that's not very popular or not very common, that's fine. But you need to understand that if you put that on the regular, market, there's a good chance you're going to take a discount because there's not going to be enough of them that look like your cattle, right? Had a belted Galloway breeder up in the Louisville area. In fact, I think he might have been the one who was just entered into the Hall of Fame there for the KCA there this past winter. Stopped me years ago. I was helping Dare do a genetics, one of the genetics master cattlemen, and I used belted Galloway as a bad color pattern to have, to put on the regular sale. And he told me at the first break that he raised belted Galloways, and I thought, well, I'm about to get it, And he let me know right quick. He found that out quick, and now he's got a freezer beef market that's unreal. And so, you pull the hide off, it doesn't matter what that color pattern was, in that case. But there's a producer that realized what he had and figured out a way to market it, Small producers can really take advantage of commingled sales. That's something where if you can get calves, commingle with other folks' calves. Our CPH sales do that. Some of our weigh-in sales do this, and we're going to get into that here in a few minutes, showing you some examples here. But our commingle sales can help put some of your cattle, your 6-weight steers, with other 6-weight steers, and get closer to that lot size that'll gather a premium. So mainstream, I asked the question, which one is more mainstream? If you go down to the stockyard anywhere in Kentucky, really pick your stockyard, and you see how many more of this old plain kind of black heifer. She's not real special, but you're going to see a whole lot more of her in the barn than you're going to see of this. I guess it's a Gert cross or a Beefmaster cross steer here. So, again, a little common sense on, if you're going to offer 2 or 3, at a sale day any particular time, I'm going to be one that I want to be looking like a lot of the cattle that are in the sale barn. So where are we going to get our market news from? Okay. And what's good about all this is if we're blessed in Kentucky, we've got a very good market news service with our Kentucky Department of Agriculture. My home state of Louisiana, our market news service became victim of budget cuts. I don't know how many years ago, 10 plus years ago, maybe. Time gets away from us, but there's not a market news service to my knowledge in the state of Louisiana anymore. And that's a shame. I know Indiana lost theirs for a while. I think they're back going again. And it starts at the ground level with our Department of Agriculture. We've got in our Department of Agriculture, especially with all the sale barns we have in Kentucky, does an excellent job. And if you can't get but one source of market news to keep track of the market, I would get this publication right here, this Kentucky Livestock and Grain Market Report. Comes out usually on a Tuesday or a Wednesday every week, and it'll send it to your email. You just contact John Chisholm or somebody up there at KDA, and they'll get you on the mailing list. We can also tap in, and they feed their data to the USDA. USDA puts it on their sites. You can do Google searches, and we'll show you some examples of USDA reports. And then obviously we've got our feeder calf futures market we'll talk about very briefly, the effect it can have later on. So if you want to save one link, this is a pretty good link to have. This links us, if you want to see individual stockyards, this is the link where KDA is compiling these individual stockyard reports, uploading it to USDA. USDA is putting it on this web page at this USDA address. But you can look up any of these sale barns. This is just half the list maybe. And starts out Monday of the week and go all the way to Friday, all the way to Saturday, really, to Somerset, which is on Saturday. So excellent place to check the market on a weekly basis, your local market, whatever market you want. Here's an example of our USDA weekly summary. This is available on Fridays. And you can see how the cattle are listed from lightest all the way to heaviest. It's just a piece of it. And this is the steers, medium and large 1s and 2s. There's that grade again. And then if we could scroll down through there, you would see, have them all listed from steers, heifers, bulls, slaughter cows, and so on of the different grades. So let's talk a little more about our Kentucky Livestock and Grain Report, because it's the one I want to kind of highlight here. Next slide or two. The second page of the first page of this, let me just back up a second. This first page, I've got the top, and this is the dairy section, mainly just because I couldn't show you the whole thing. But at the bottom of this page, you actually have feed and commodity prices, which is good to have. And then on the second page, it's kind of the overall summary of the LM1s and 2s, steers and heifers, okay, as a market statement here. And then if you click on this full summary here, this link right here, it will actually get you back to this USDA webpage where you can see where all these numbers came from. Now, one thing I want to show you is these cattle that are on the LM1s and 2s. If you look here, there's 299 head of heavy 4-weight steers that average 152.69, and then you can see there's 11 head of fancy. That must have been a fancy package. And then 38 that were value added, probably a wean set of some sort, one owner wean set maybe, 163, or it had a little range here, maybe several packages of that. So you can see the premium that they're being paid for cattle that have something added to them, whether it's a weaning program or maybe it's a one owner situation that sell above the market. But what that second page is covering is the average cattle. So let's go ahead and skip ahead. Here it is. This shows you the steers and the heifers, and you can see it's broke down, on 50-pound breaks. Okay, and that's something they changed to several years ago, and it's kind of fine-tuned the market. And here's what I want to spend a little bit of time on right here, and this is what I think is one of the unique things about what KDA does on this market report. There's lots of 20 head or more. And we had a light run, so usually there's more. Most of the stockyards are listed, and I'm probably just about half of them or 2/3 of them listed this time for this market report with our light runs we're having right now. But usually what we'll have is these are groups of cattle of 20 or more head. So that, again, now we're tapping into some of those higher dollar cattle selling at a premium, mainly a lot of times for lot size. You'll see some premium in here, and I think it's a very, very good place to go to see value cattle. Now let's dig a little deeper. Let's talk about how these stockyards weigh cattle and how that affects what we're looking at here. So when are the cattle weighed? And that's something we need to consider anytime we're looking at a market report. Is weigh up is a big deal. Okay, you know, the old cliche is order buyers make their living on weigh up, and that there's a lot of truth to that. Shrink and weigh up play a big role in transactions. But we've got different sale barns that weigh cattle in different ways. For instance, on this, what we have right here, this is not all of them in the state, but these three that are showing on here, these cattle are weighed on arrival. So the Guthrie sale, Glasgow, Hopkinsville, the three that on this sheet right now that weigh on arrival. Owensboro also does it. Upton weighs on arrival, and I think Laurel County does. Laurel, London actually does too. But those when the cattle come to the yard, they're unloaded, and they go to the scales first before they're pinned, and then they sell later that day. Okay, so what does that mean, and why does that matter? Well, you've got a fuller weight. There's less shrink involved with that one, with those cattle, and it also allows that sale barn to do a few things. So if they're weighed on arrival, in the kind of the slang for that is a weigh-in sale, it also allows these cattle to be commingled. Okay, and they'll generally have less shrink. So the reason they can be commingled is because we've captured their weight. So if I bring in 5 head and say Dare Bullock brings in 6 head, and they're the same size cattle, same kind of cattle, if they catch a weight on mine and put them in a pen, and they catch a weight on Dare's and they weigh within, say, 50, 60 pounds each other, they can put those groups together. Now we've got a load lot of 11 head of the same, but they know which piece of that, of the weight of that pen needs to be paid to me and what needs to be paid to Dare. So on a weigh-in sale, they have that advantage. And that's why our CPH sales, our commingled CPH sales, that's why we weigh on arrival at them also. Now, the other side of that is most of our stockyards weigh when the cattle are sold, or a weigh out sale, and I've got them listed here. Okay, so there's some things to consider from that standpoint. So on a weigh out sale, you cannot commingle these. Okay, however, and there's generally going to be more shrink associated. So we bring these cattle to town, unload them at the stockyard. They're going to stand in some kind of stacking pen, stacking alley, wherever they're holding them until later on that day or whenever they sell. And then when the cattle come into the sale ring, most of those sales have a live sale ring. In other words, a scale in the sale, under the sale ring, and they catch the weight when the cattle are sold. Now, they have to stay in one owner lots, whether it be 2, 3, 40, 50, 60, 70. Those cattle have to stay in one owner lots to pass through that scale. I mean, to be able to before they're sold, right? So there's some advantage and disadvantage. If you've got reputation cattle and enough of them that can go in one package, this may be a better way to go. If you've got kind of a variety of weights, maybe some variety of colors, you may be better off. Your cattle might sell a little better, maybe at a sale that weighs in and commingles, right? And so that's something to consider. Another thing we need to think about is in looking at some examples here is what else is happening to affect this market. So we've got this market report, and you can look, we've got, I'm highlighting Stanford, that was on April 9th, and I've got Springfield, that was April 6th. Okay, so I think that's a Monday versus a Thursday, right? So look at the difference in these prices. So we had 44 head of 868-pound black calves sold for $1,670 on that Monday in Springfield. You come up here, Stanford was selling on Thursday, same kind of cattle, basically, 850s. One group was mixed, one was black, but almost a load lot, or probably about a load lot, maybe on 2 loads here. And these cattle sold a lot higher. So what gives here? And this is where a lot of things can happen. And when we look at a market report, we need to see try to see the whole picture. This is what was happening that week. This was 2 weeks ago. Look where the Chicago Mercantile Exchange for feeder calf futures were on that Monday in Springfield, $1.10. Look where we were by that Thursday. The market rallied all week, and it increased nearly $10 a hundredweight. This market, these prices reflect that rally. So there's nothing wrong with the Springfield market. It's just it sold on a lower day. And then when these cattle or these big cattle, this is where it's going to affect you, is these big cattle, these 7-8 weight type cattle, because they're closer to going to the feedlot. They're what the feeder calf futures market is tracking, is this weight range. Now, our lightweight cattle may not be as effective with swings, but a $10 swing from a Monday to a Thursday is huge. And that's some of the frustrating things we've been seeing in the market for the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years now, is how volatile this market can be, changing from day to day. And it makes it a moving target. But keep that in mind when you're looking at these weekly reports. You know, daily reports are barely current enough, you know. Let's look at another example. We're going to look at Guthrie on April 9th versus Richmond on April 10th. So that was Thursday of that same week. And then we've got the very next day, Friday, is when Richmond has their sale. Let's look at some heifers here. So we had some light 6-weight heifers, you know, a package of them that you know, sold for $1.21. And then we look over here at Guthrie. This looks like about a load lot of 6-weight heifers that sold for $1.18. What do we know between these two? What is this telling us right here? Okay, first off, let's just check. What was the CME doing? Futures market was basically the same, so we can throw that variable out, right? So it basically stayed the same from Thursday to Friday, all right? But we've got a little better way up in terms from the seller standpoint over here in Guthrie, because it was a weigh-in sale. A little better way up from the buyer standpoint over here at Richmond, right? Also, what do we know if this is a way out sale? What do we know about these cattle? Are they one owner lot or commingled? They've got to be one owner lot. That's all they can be, because they're selling in a way out sale. Cattle are weighed when sold. So this is a one owner lot, which has a lot of weight, carries a lot of weight. A one owner lot, better way up for the buyer. Okay, so that kind of equals that $3 difference in per hundredweight. Also, these cattle are a little bit bigger. Okay, so do we know this was a commingled group right here at Guthrie? I don't know. That may have been a one owner load lot. That's the thing about these sales that are where the cattle are weigh-in sales, is we don't know for sure when we look at here whether they're commingled or not. But when we look at these sales where they're sold on a way out basis, they have to be one owner lots to be able to trade that way. All right. So suffice it to say, we need to compare apples to apples, right? And that's hard. That's always hard to do. But the biggest thing is try to reason through this, try to look at it and say, okay, why is this price for this quality? Is it a certain quality? Is it a certain breed type? Is there mix written by it versus black and black white face or blacks and charolais? I mean, what does mix really mean? And that means different things at different sale barns. What's the weigh conditions? Which kind of sale barn is it standing in? What's the feeder calf futures? What were they that day? Is it a one owner lot or is it commingled? There's all kinds of things to consider here when you're trying to look at a market report. Okay. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and talk about some strategies to add value. There's our pyramid again. Let's see what we can do to try to start climbing that pyramid. All right. First thing we're going to talk about is castrating early in life. I told you we were going to talk about castration and what it could do. Here is one of our PVAP cooperators. And if you look, these calves were castrated at weaning. Okay. And that probably cost this producer $600 to $800 on the 21 steers he had. Look at this average daily gain. The heifers, he had a good feeding program, did everything else right, but he cut the bulls at weaning. A lot of us do that. But look what it cost him. On a short preconditioned period, it hurt those calves. these calves, these steers should have gained more than the heifer. So look at research, probably about a half a pound of gain. If you say that it hurt them from the tune of a half pound of gain, these steers probably should have gained 2.8 with the heifers gaining 2.5. So do the math, and that's probably about a $600-800 error on that deal. Okay, so castrate those bulls less than 90 days of age and get them an implant, and they'll be the same weight at weaning. And then plus they'll be ready for post-weaning gains if we're going to do any kind of preconditioning deal. How about weaning, feeding, and marketing? The market is paying a premium for weaned calves. You can see that in the market report. I showed you some examples a while ago, those value-added prices. If you couple a good weaning program with sound feeding and a good marketing program, it'll pay some dividends. And again, just to kind of reiterate, here we go. We got, you can see some of the, again, apples to apples. We got 625, 234 head, 132. And then let's get them weaned or value added to them. And look what the market's doing. It's giving a premium. Now, we don't know for sure what happened to give this value added. Could have been one owner still, could have been a combination of things. But a lot of times it's good wean lots of calves that helps. CPH has documented this. This is a summary from 2001 to 2019. It's documented the estimated added returns, $6 over the market, over 361,000 head. And you can see we calculate that best we can and so on. So we've got some consistent returns there. Here's a summary of 10 of the closeouts that we've done from the PVAT program this past year. PVAT program is a new program that we're offering again this year that gives some cost share to folks who have never weaned and preconditioned before. And so it's a chance to learn the ropes and actually get a little incentive payment for doing it. I've ordered this in the terms of the order that they sold. So this group here sold in April and on down to three producers that sold their calves right after the first of the year. And you can see, we've got a wide range in feed cost to gain, wide range in some performances. But in general, the folks who put the weight on these cattle that put over 100 pounds, 150 pounds were well rewarded for their efforts here. So we've got, that's encouraging. So I want to kind of take that and then kind of apply it to some seasonal trends that we see in the marketplace. Look this up today. I've always wondered what the conventional wisdom was on this. I used to say 2/3 of the nation's cow herd calved in the spring, but you know what? According to the National Ag Statistics, over 70% calved between January 1 and June 30th. So that has an effect on the market. It has an effect on our price trends. If you look at this is from Kenny Burdine's data, 500-pound calves in Kentucky. Blue is good. Tennessee orange is bad in this case. No offense to our Tennessee folks. But and then green is the high point in each one of those years. So I've colored that green for money. But look where the blue is. Look where our 5-weight calves are selling the highest during the year compared to where they're selling the lowest. Okay. So there's just more cattle coming to town in the fall because most of us are spring calving. Less of us are fall calving, less calves coming to town, and more demand for grass calves. So that's not a surprise. If you look here, our 8-weight, our yearlings, look where the blue is, okay? Here in the summer months. What are these? These are our fall-born calves that got put into a backgrounding program. A lot of times they're in a grass program. And boy, the feedlots love to grab these cattle here in August, September, lock in their corn price. Corn price is trending low. Fat cattle market starting to wake up December on, and now they've got something to lock in and have a good chance of making money with. Again, the just seasonal trends. Here, I went ahead and added our choice steers, our fat cattle market, and this is interesting. Let's say that we calve in March, right? Most of us calve in March, spring calvers, right? Count 18 to 20 months. So we got 12 months back to March. So let's go 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. This is when these cattle are coming to town, right? Look where all the orange is. Look at big slug, of fat cattle coming to market, finishing in that June, July, August, September period, right? Here's where our fat cattle do the best. And if you can do the same thing, you can take September and October and count ahead 18 months, and you're going to hit this window right here. There's just not as many cattle being offered for sale at this time of the year in, year out. Again, that's the nature of our calving season and how we calve our cows can affect this. Here's something else that I don't think we've talked enough about. Here's an advantage to fall calving. Look at our cull cow prices as they fluctuate through the year. Look, most of us are spring calving, so we wean our calves in October. We preg check our cows and we send them to town because we don't want to winter an open cow, right? So most of our cull cows are going to town in the heart of the winter. Think about this: our fall calvers, we're weaning over here in April, maybe May. We can dry that cow up, we can put her on grass, and we can sell her in this sweet spot right here. And she's not only going to bring more, she's probably going to weigh 150, 200 pounds more. She's probably in better flesh than these cows over here that we're culling in November. So again, that could be a double advantage there. Kenny has a way of putting things, making you see things right, how you need to see them. This is his slide, and I'm going to give him credit for it. April prices from 2010 to 2019, 169 versus October, 154. There it is right there. Now, I will want to highlight, we're in a downward trend right now. This seasonal thing is not perfect. You saw where we had exceptions on my color-coded charts there, and we're in the middle of one right now. This is kind of an ugly spring right now, but it may also be an opportunity for us to sell that calf, if you will, into a preconditioning or backgrounding program and hopefully capitalize on this trend right here, where August, where our cattle, our yearlings tend to be better and sell at higher prices. No guarantees on that, but I'm an optimist, and I'd like to think maybe this is an opportunity to hold that calf, especially if we've got some extra forward just to get that done. That brings up this concept. This is something Kenny has put together over the years. And I think, again, just a unique way to look at things. This is real dollars, what the prices are from 2008 to 2020, okay? Average price of a 5-weight calf, 530-pound calf in October, putting 120 pounds, a 2-pound per day preconditioning deal, and selling that calf. This is the typical CPH, fall CPH type scenario, selling that 650. Over this time period, you would have had to put that gain on for 89 cents or less, okay? All right, look what happens when you extend that to February. So from 650 to 770, again, we're tapping into some of that seasonal trend, okay? Putting that in our favor. You can put that on, if you can put it on for less than $1.14, you've got a chance to make $1. And that's interesting. And we have watched this thing ever since he started this slide series. I've been updating this thing, and it's just remained very consistent. Remember right here, okay? So 70 cents was our feed cost of gain. Now we've got a little more cost involved with that, but we're well under that $1.15. And then look at the guys who made the most money in this deal this year. Look at these guys right here. They held those cattle over. Had one individual that did both. Went half his cattle went to Guthrie in December, and the other half went in February. Okay, and that's really what saved him, because his cattle really didn't perform very well. The young producer just getting started, but it really helped. That second group of cattle helped him a bunch. Okay, fed a little longer, had a good feeding program, capitalize on that general trend as you go past the first of the year. So what if you're sitting on some fall-born calves right now, like a lot of us are? Okay, same dollars. It's interesting because this is the same dollars right now in April to go to June. You know, it's going to be a little tough maybe to stay under that 89 cents. You've got to watch your feed costs. And then to take that calf all the way to August and get that heavy yearling market, we can do this. But what do we have? The big advantage we have at this time of the year, we've got grass. So we can cheapen these gains up at this time of the year if we've got available pasture and grass that we can't necessarily do as economically in the on those springborn calves going into the winter. So again, this might be our opportunity to try to add some value to these calves. All right. And that brings us to kind of some break evens that Kenny has on his. I use Dr. Burdine's calculator all the time. I ran some current numbers, and right now it doesn't look so hot. Okay, for the June scenarios to take a heifer from 525 to 675, we're right at break even. Okay, I'm hoping this market will trend up as we get out of this pandemic. And gosh, it has to. This is the one I really like, though. $1.22. We've got some load lots of 7 weights. Individual load lots are selling in those upper 20s right now across the state. The 7 weights. Now the 8 weights are still breaking them pretty hard, but I think we've got some potential to hold these cattle a little longer, especially if we can do it with a little bit of grass or feed on grass. Last thing I'm gonna wrap up with is just real quickly is some trucking and sale day considerations. On shrink, I like to say, don't fumble the ball on sale day. We do everything right, and then we have the cattle have a jailbreak when we're getting them up to load, and now all of a sudden we're having to pin our cattle 2 or 3 times just to get them on the truck, and that's very disheartening. And where you have the blowout, a double blowout or something on the way to the yard. I mean, that's things happen. So what we want to do is try to avoid as much as possible. So shrink is variable. We're all going to get 3%, on our first 30 miles. That's going to happen. Our morning cattle are going to be less full. That's why most order buyers want you to gather early in the morning before the cattle have had a chance to eat a lot. They're going to shrink more. Glenn Mackey did a lot of this work there at the Paris stockyards years ago. They are going to shrink more standing on concrete than they will on dirt. So be careful where your cattle are standing in terms of, especially if you're going to an overnight stand and you get put in a water pen, feeding water pen, but it's concrete. It's probably going to be a little bit of a negative there. Sale day, check and repair your pins and gates. Can't emphasize that enough. You can check trailer tires, have a plan for blown tires, breakdowns. Experienced this last summer getting mine to town on one trailer, and it's not very fun. Try to do your sorting and your chute work at least preferably a week in advance if at all possible. If you can get your sorting done to where when it's time to load cattle, you load cattle, get them on the trucks, get them to town, get them across the scales, and I think that would be a lot better. If you're hiring trucks, if you got to hire your trucking done, don't bring the cattle into the loadout pen until all the trucks are there and ready to go. Had a bad experience with that years ago with one not showing up and the cattle stand waiting to be weighed. Load quietly with as little stress as possible. Don't overload these trailers. That can come back to haunt you. Be careful with your overnight stands. Learned this lesson the hard way years ago. I pulled some cattle off grass in August, hauled them to the yard for an overnight stand. They were good yearlings, hard yearlings. And we put the hay out in the pen, and had a good water pen, good dirt pen, lots of room. They were cool. They put roll hay out there. Those cattle never really found the hay and started eating it until the first thing that next morning. That's when they were going to get weighed. Okay, so think about it. Cattle off green grass, and then you put an old roll of hay out there. They haven't seen hay since the winter. So not a good idea, right? So be careful. If you're going to do an overnight stand, be careful how you do it, what you do it. Work with your stockyard on that. Oklahoma State research shows that balling calves can shrink, 3% or more than weaned calves. And the worst group in their research was balling calves hauled to town the night before. And think about that. How many of us small, medium-sized producers, that's about the only choice we have if we're not weaning calves. We're going to gather the calves, say, on a Sunday evening, and we're going to haul them to town Sunday evening when we're off, and those cattle are going to sell in a way-out sale a lot of times. It doesn't matter what sale it is, way out, way in, it's going to sell the next day. So you're going to have an awful lot of shrink just from that calf. That calf is scared, it's bawling, it's walking the pen. Not a good way up for the seller in that state. Now, we talked a lot about way up in the seller and versus the buyer. Here's the thing where the seller needs to be honest and not overfeed and tank these cattle up. That's just stealing, doing that. We see that from time to time. Folks show up late and the cattle are tanked, and that's just not an honest thing to do. So to summarize, to wrap this up, know your market. know your cattle. If you're not familiar with some of these market reports, subscribe to them. Learn more about it. Have a calving season. Gosh, there's so many reasons to have a calving season. Marketing is just one small part of the whole deal. There's lots of benefits for calving season. Try to avoid the easy discounts. Our quality issues. A lot of times that can be fixed with a different bull. Managing them better, getting these bulls cut. Uh, you know, Making sure we're not getting too much crazy color patterns in our cattle. Try to market calves that are at least 500 pounds or better. And I know that sounds oversimplification. Back in 2014 and 15, we could have made money. We did make money on 3-weight calves, but year in, year out, you've got to have some weight to put some dollars in your pocket. And 500 pounds is I think that's a good threshold there to shoot for. At least be above 500. Consider some value added sales. If you're gonna, consider our PVAP program. If you've never done this before, I'd really encourage you to talk to your county agent. Let's get you going. We've got room for about 20 of those this year. We did 10, but really did about 12 this last year. We can do about 20 this next year. Love to get it all that done and try to help add some value to these calves. And then obviously don't fumble the ball on sale day. Have all your ducks in a row and get these cattle to town and hopefully in a safe manner and go from there. I've got time for some questions, and the last thing I want to remind you, this slide here, the buying bulls by maintaining social distancing. That was our first webinar. That was 2 weeks ago. It is now loaded at the YouTube website here that I've shown here. We've got a survey to evaluate this presentation tonight at that link there. And then I want to remind you, this coming Thursday, we are going to do a rerun of Les's Preparing Cows for the Breeding Season. It'll be Thursday night since we had the trouble there last Tuesday night. So with that, take any questions that you may have.
If anybody on the Zoom has a question, just type it into the chat and I'll get it to Kevin. Kevin, I don't know if you've got your chat up. Dr. Van Valen, just put the survey link in the chat. If you can, please fill out the survey. The surveys are incredible tools for us to be able to improve and to demonstrate impact. And if you would just take a second to fill these surveys out and get them back to us, they greatly improve our ability to present and give these programs and shape these programs into a format that might be a little bit more amenable to everybody.
Kevin, I had a question that came in that asked, what would you say would be the ideal sell weight, thinking about calves, maybe steers versus heifers, small versus large frame, et cetera? Could you give a rough idea if you were going to background these calves to think about an ideal weight?
So if we've got calves that we home raised calves, cow calf deal that we're gonna background on our own, is that what you're saying?
I'm thinking that's what the question is. Yes.
Okay.
It's not.
Anytime I work with producers on either whether it be rations or how you're going to manage a set of calves, whether it's calves you're buying to background or whether it's home raised calves, I like to try to visit with them about when do they want to sell, or what sale are they aiming for, if it's a dated sale, one of our preconditioned sales or whatnot. But find out when you want to get there, or what sale what's your end point. And then we can back up and figure a feeding program to fit that. I mean, in general, absolute ceilings, I wouldn't get real crazy about getting heifers over 750 pounds. A lot of times, we get close to 800 pounds on heifers, we get a pretty good discount. On steers, you could get up to 850 pounds and be pretty safe. Now, that said, if you're going to be those heavier weights with those kind of calves, if you don't have a load lot, you really need to be tapping into some kind of preconditioned sale. And we've got a lot of our sale barns it's not just CPH sales. Irvington has a yellow tag sale. I think Glasgow has a farmer elite sale, and Ledbetter has a red tag sale. Their sales, that's the sale I'd be aiming for our big cattle, because there'll be more numbers of bigger cattle at those type sales that have been handled the same way. So if you don't have a load lot, I really encourage you to look at and talk to your sale barn and see, do they have a special sale on the horizon that you could aim for? And then you can build a feeding program to fit, to fit that window and see what you can do from a weight standpoint. Does that make sense?
Kevin, a question from Irvin Yoder down in Madison County. On fall calves just weaned, how much should they be fed on pasture?
Again, it depends on when do you want to sell them, okay? If you want to get, I'm assuming just average to above average pasture in Madison County, let's just say, good fescue clover pasture, if you want them to gain 2 pounds a day, if it's end of fight infected pasture, you probably need to be feeding 5 pounds of probably soy hulls, or a soy hull distiller's mix would probably assure you of hitting your 2 pounds a day. If you're on some end of fight, novel end of fight pastures, we're getting 2 pounds a day with very little feed for most of the summer. So again, it depends on your forage base. It depends on how hard you want to push them, what your end goal is. When do you want to sell? But yeah, 5 pounds is a good place to start, I think, on typical fescue clover pasture if we want to try to get that 2 pounds a day gain.
Anyone else? It seems to be a wrap.
Kevin, I had a
Jeff.
question that came in. Thinking about as these calves would go into the feedlot, if you were thinking about retaining ownership on these calves, what would you think average daily gains would be for yearling type cattle when they're placed on feed?
So these would be cattle that we would already have backgrounded through the summer. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, this yearlings coming off of grass.
Coming off of grass, say in the summer. I mean, you could, 3.5, even 4 pounds. I know I've followed some of mine and have gotten feedback on some of mine, have gotten closeouts. These yearlings will really hit the ground running coming off of summer grass. I've had feedback. Some of my groups get 4 pounds. So, I'd say 3.5 is very doable. I think you'll be pleased with the performance on coming off of grass.
And what did some of the cattle that went out to feed this year finish? What was the load lot average daily gains on some of those?
They were right just shy from when we sent them out, just shy of 3.5. Those cattle were probably fed a little bit harder at home before they left. They were more CPH looking cattle that had a little more feed. They weren't as much grass yearlings, that particular group. But yeah, the closeout on them were about 3, 4, 5. It was just shy of 3.5.
Thanks, Kevin.
Well, if there's no other questions, we appreciate everybody checking in. Hopefully we got a lot of views and likes on Facebook too. Kevin, thanks a ton for an incredible presentation. And if anybody wants to catch it again, we do record these and make them available, but also it'll be on Facebook Live, and you could probably go back to the recording on there and pick it up. My redo, like Kevin mentioned, is Thursday at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Hopefully we'll be prepared to give a good presentation that's uninterrupted. So we were very happy with everybody tonight and how everything went tonight. And Kevin, appreciate you.